Hello, hello. How we doing, everybody? How are we doing? How's it going? Hello, Kono. How we doing today? Jay Brew, Issa, Yo, Naveen. Hello. How you guys? Are you guys coping? I'm coping pretty hard at the moment. I'm not gonna lie. It's a very disappointing update we've just received. A disappointing update from David Ornstein that we've received. Definitely disappointing. No doubt about that. No doubt. It's disappointing. We were saying yesterday that let's talk about this because I'm going to run through all of the things that Ornstein said here that I think are important to note. I don't think Osimhen will be joining a rival. It's disappointing because it's, look, the report's saying that it was here. Let's just look at it, okay? But I want to run through why I very much believe David Ornstein on this. I mean, you should believe Ornstein in general, but I want to explain it a little bit. So in this video, he talked through a number of things. All right. The first thing that he said with us was he's talking about Osimhen and saying that if we, that we're going for Cunha, right, and then we have to get personal terms done and all that. That's all good. We're all okay there. That Delap is our number one target. We know that. We were out, live yesterday, the video this morning. I tried to very much clarify this point that Delap is for sure viewed as the top target, the guy we're going for, who we're trying to sign. They want him as a sensible signing, and it's because of the exact reason that he said in that video, which is even more telling. What he said was the finances are in place to make the signings of Delap and Cunha, and it's not predicated on European football or sales. Point being, we have the money right now. It's lined up to spend on Cunha and Delap, both. We have that 80 to 100 million. If you watched my video from this morning, which I still recommend after this live, this one won't be too long. I would definitely watch that again because that was the key point. We have the money for those deals. An Osimhen deal is extremely complicated in that respect. There's so many things you have to wait for, all of that. Now, the other factor in this that we were speaking about yesterday is that it's not just that we need the money if we wanted to get Osimhen. It was going to have to require him to want to take a pay cut or a cut price deal. And I said I did not believe at all that 40 million story. Bullshit. Not true, right? And the problem was we don't want to do a 60 million deal on 350,000 a week for anybody. So what I imagine has happened here, with Osimhen, based on Ornstein's update, is based on the information we gathered about Osimhen, which we did do, been confirmed by everybody. We did make contact. We did do all of that. Based on the information that we would have gathered from that, he's making the choice. He'd rather go to Saudi and get his money and not take a pay cut. Nobody's going to sign him in England on those wages. We saw that Chelsea wouldn't do it. We won't do it. So that's pretty telling, I think, in that respect. That's essentially what has happened with all the information around the deal, because we really like him. He's just not going to, there's going to be no compromise on a deal for Osimhen, and so we're just not going to do it. And so it's off the table, according to Ornstein. And that makes sense to me. I don't like it necessarily. I cannot 100% say I agree. I still think it's worth the money. I'm not going to lie to you. I still think it's worth the money. I think it's one of the few players who is worth the money in all of Europe. But I also understand the problem with giving him 350,000 a week is that then what do you do with Bruno and guys who are just getting those bumps up to 200? What do you do with your key players in other positions? How do the problem with it setting the tone about where everybody ends up from a financial perspective. So it's disappointing because we checked this deal out plenty, and obviously Ornstein's ahead. I never would say that that he's not. I always forget how much I dislike summer window and the lack of people's understanding on things. We pay that to Casemiro, I know, and it's viewed as a huge mistake, right? And we can't, and they don't want to be seen giving those wages out, but it is disappointing. I think it's a little bit disappointing from an Osimhen perspective that he wants to go to he'd rather go to Saudi and get paid than go somewhere else. That he'd rather go to Saudi and get the money than stay in Europe. I do think that's disappointing. I think it's disappointing when anybody does that these days. But yeah, it is what it is. It is disappointing to me because obviously, yeah, I know, Matthew, but the annoyance of it gets to me. The annoyance of it gets to me. I don't need to get into that aspect of it. I'm 100% certain that we made contact with Osimhen's people, but the problem is to understand the conditions of a deal, and the problem is those conditions don't work for us apparently. So we're not going to do it. That's what that's what Ornstein says. I don't play the games about that. Do I have mods? I do, but they're not very here, and I never really asked them to be. But yeah, so that leads us to the scenario where we are essentially waiting for Liam Delap to make his decision. David Ornstein says that he will make his decision soon, by the end of the season, right? I think that's what he said. So that's what we're waiting on. That's what I was saying this morning, that we kind of have to wait and see who he decides. Now, my biggest concern is what if Delap doesn't choose us? Because I'm okay with the plan of Cunha and Delap. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with Cunha coming in, but I do have concerns over Delap. I do totally have concerns over Delap, and it seems like we should have a better offer for him, but I still have the same concerns. Yeah, the Turkish tier 1 guy said otherwise on Osimhen. Look, this is what I think, Ozamrani. I do understand that. This is what I think, and I said this yesterday, and I said it this morning. I think that what happens a lot of times is when we make contact, then the story gets blown out of proportion. We made contact with Osimhen. We made contact with his camp. We wanted to understand it. Ornstein's own colleagues, Laurie Whitwell, have said that as well, by the way. But he, being first to this and being David Ornstein, has now presented new news, and he's never said it before, that we're not getting him. So my feeling on the matter of it is we made contact to understand the conditions of it, to consider it, to line up all of our deals, and then based on what we've been hearing back, it's just not an option. And David Ornstein is the first person to hear that and to say that and rule it out entirely. It seems like he's choosing to go to Saudi to make his money. And so, unfortunately, I believe that over the other things and reports. I think like I said, I think they get blown up out of proportion. And I tried to dial that back in this morning's video too, to make it very clear that we're not like doing contracts and agreeing deals with Osimhen or anything like that. But the biggest concern that I have, no, I don't think so, IR. He's saying if we turn to other options, we're not going to get him. And I really, really think he's right on that, because if it's always been conditional, Like, look, I would love to sit there and do the ITK thing and say, oh, yeah, okay, well, he was an option and, Ornstein's just, but I listened to the clip. I watched it. I understand it. And I'm not going to tear that down in the slightest. I think he's probably 100% correct. I think the unfortunate issue here is that, which I did say in this morning's video, if there's not a compromise on the fee or the wages, Osimhen won't be an option for us. Even with CL, even with sales, he won't be without a compromise in one of those two areas. And unfortunately, doesn't seem like that's the case. And he's going to go to Saudi and get his money. And we're just going to have to accept that. I think it's really disappointing. The bigger concern for me, Driving for work, please at least keep this going long enough for me to get from Des Moines to Omaha. How the Jacob? I know how far that is, being from out here in the West as well, on these planes. I've done the drive across Iowa for between Denver and Chicago before, and the drive from Denver to Kansas, and all of those drives, there is no chance we will. That is such a boring drive, but I do appreciate how boring it is that you want me to stay live until then. But I don't think I can. Do that. If we win Europa, can we join Gyökeres race? I don't think so. For the same reason, I think he's going to be getting 60 million and 250,000 or something like that. So yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. I just don't think that it seems like we're really sticking to not wanting to do that. That kind of thing. At this point, the disappointing thing is this: I've been okay with Delap and Cunha, but the really concerning thing, I'm gonna debate this with myself again. Okay. I'm gonna debate this with myself again as well. If we miss out on Delap, then the mention that we might get nothing is a serious concern, because going with Hojlund is a joke to me, for what it's worth. However, I made the argument at one point earlier that if we can't get I kind of almost feel this way about Delap. If we couldn't get Osimhen, I would almost like a top striker. I'd almost rather we just don't sign anybody, because I'd rather just do it again next year. Get an older player in and then get a top striker next season, and spend the money elsewhere. That's my view. In essence, I'm kind of okay with that aspect of it. What I don't want us to do is go do something like buy Benjamin Šeško for 70 million. That's a fucking disaster, right? That's a disaster. That will be a disaster. Delap won't be a disaster because he's only 30 million, but I'm not sure he's going to be the solution. But if we were to go spend 70, 80 million on someone like Šeško or something like that, that would be a potential disaster. I'd rather assign nobody than make those signings. I'm not going to lie to you guys. The only player I think who's worth that much money is Osimhen in the market. And that's not happening. But I very, very much would say it would be a bad idea to go spend 80 million on Šeško or on somebody like that. That would be a big mistake to me. Now the reason I kind of I'm thinking through this is that we're signing this Enzo kid, right, as a young striker to loan him to Lausanne for a year. We have Cheeto coming through, and I'm kind of like, what if we just fix the rest of the team and get someone who some experienced player to lead the line for a season, worst case scenario, and then we solve it next year and we go big on a striker next year? Because if we could save the money, get another midfielder, get another center back, get another goalkeeper, and then go get somebody big next season, then that would be ideal for me. So I wonder about that. Yeah, I wonder about that. Yeah, I know Michelle has said that before, and he said something else recently. What was it? Look, I understand that. I understand that. Look, I actually understand that. I know that that is an issue about goals. I'm not saying it would solve the goals issue, but what I'm saying is, if we cannot get a good striker, don't compromise. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. If we cannot get a good striker, then we shouldn't compromise on it. Um, that's my concern, right? That's what I'm talking about. When that yeah, like it's that kind of thing. Like I the worst thing I think we could do is compromise, and I kind of feel that way about Delap myself personally. Um, but let me say this. Here's all I'm saying. Imagine instead of Delap, let's say we can't get Delap. What if instead we buy Masta and Tuonu, and we play Bruno, Masta, and Cunha as our front three, and we still have Ahmad, and we still have and we've got young players developing for for the next year, and we still have Mainu, and we still have like could we not make do with that for a year? It's still much better than what we have, you know. um, and then next, and then go the following season and get a top striker. Because what's the alternative? What's the alternative if we miss out? Who's going to score my headers? Delap's not either, so that doesn't solve that problem for me. You know, that doesn't fix that problem for me. Yeah, to be fair, Emran went the first few years without a good striker. He waited for the perfect one. It's true, yeah. Sheshko is not the answer. Sheshko is not the answer. Arsenal haven't done too bad without a striker. Right. It's not like they climbed the table to being competitive without a striker. They needed to get a big one, I think, sooner than they have. What top striker options aren't there this year that will be there next year? It's not that, it's the money aspect. Money, that's my concern, right? Like, it's more that some of the top striker prospects are expensive, but a big risk today. If we wait till next summer and it's like and we fix the rest of the team and we have a bunch of money to spend on a striker next year, then we could go for someone like Aghawa or someone like Ekatike or something like that if they go forward. All you want is big names? No, for a striker, yeah. Fuck the small names for striker. I'm not buying that. What successful small names for a striker have there been? It doesn't happen. Striker's the one position I do not accept small names. That I think is a huge, huge risk. Watkins I would take this summer for sure. I would take Watkins for a couple years. Watkins I would take for a couple years, yeah. Yeah. I mean, like the Cavani thing was amazing, Cavani was amazing. Like getting that for a year, if you could get that for a year and fix the rest of the team, I would take it, Schick, Benzema, Griezmann, yeah. It's a worry to me. It is a worry to me though. What did that guy say? Yeah, but I look at like next season, Samu might be somebody we could get. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's my main concern is like, what if, like, obviously we want Delap this season, but what if we don't get him? What if we don't get him? Do we go for Mateta? But the price there is over what we want to pay too. Hmm. Cover Lewin. No, thank you. No, thank you. Beto from Everton. I don't know. Money Mal's gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. And a reminder that Money is the one who sent me that nice plaque, the nice wooden thing I have at home, the pop cut. And I think I still have the link below. So appreciate that, Money. Thank you, my friend. Nice. Oh yeah, look at that. You still can't get one, Issa. You still can't get one. Pivot to Mbumo. I mean, that's a choice. That's a choice. Rather push Cunha 9 and get Mbumo 10. Yeah, Pratik, thanks for the donation. I that's a choice too. I mean, that's an option. That's something that I would be open to. I guess what I'm looking at is, let me pull this. If we miss on Delap, stop gap 9 and spend at a 10, or I'm curious. Well, I just want to know what people's opinions are. I want to know what people's opinions are on this. If we have Champions League, we need to sign a striker. Yeah, that's a good point too, Javier. But why not go Mbumo and Cunha? Why not go Mbumo and Cunha then? Wouldn't that be enough if we can't get Delap? If we do miss on Delap, because I'm still concerned about that. Like, that's the only reason I'm discussing this right now. Yeah, a stopgap would be like Schick or like some older player, you know? Because I'm looking at it like, okay, yeah, like, look, if we had Mbumo and Cunha and Bruno and Xerxes and Ahmad for the front, you know, and Mainu and all of that, then why not? You know, you could play Xerxes as a false 9 with Mbumo and Cunha alongside him, and that would work. And Amarim has run that system before. I don't know, man. I'm thinking if you miss on Delap, just get Mbumo. I'm starting to think that way. I'm starting to think if you miss on Delap, get Mbumo and run the false 9. He did it with I never remember this guy's name. But who he had before Gyökeres. He had because he has the same name as somebody else, and it always screws with my head. It always screws with my head. Look, Paulinho, thank you, Issa, thank you. You know, he did this as he ran Paulinho out as a false 9 in his earliest iterations of his team for a couple of years. No. It was Paulinho. And he ran him as a false 9, and then he ran out, you know, and then you could run Cunha and Mbumo next to that. Why not? So you could put Xerxes in that false 9 position, and then run Mbumo and Cunha out there as the wingers. You got a left footer, you got a right footer. Why not? Do you really believe United aren't in for Osimhen? I don't think that's what he's saying, Kalen. What I believe is that he's not an option anymore for us. Like, they aren't in for him as of now. Yes, 100%. I believe Ornstein when he says that. When he says something that explicitly, I believe it. Unfortunately, yep. It's too bad. But I think it's also on Osimhen now, unfortunately. But there's three things. I wanted to talk about. So I think everybody's kind of mixed here on this, which is not surprising. Delighted to catch you live. Thank you. What about Matteo Retegui from Atalanta? 23 goals, 31 games. You know, I've heard his name a few times, and maybe it would be interesting to see that. Where did I see the clip? It's on NBC Sports Soccer here. If you go here to this, you can watch it. NBC Sports Soccer. There's a few really, really interesting things in there, okay? Number one, obviously, we know Delap and Cunha, main guys, we're going for them, and we should hear back on Delap soon. It will make life a lot easier if Delap says yes, okay? And it'll make life a lot easier if Delap says yes, because it means we're settled. Our budget is spent on Delap and Cunha. It's settled. Look, one of the things we got really confirmed here is that we have the money. We have this 80 to 100 million. We have it. So if we spend that on Delap and Cunha, and we know we're spending that, then we know from that, if we get Champions League, we get another probably 70 to 80 million to spend. Wait, Xerxes Paulinho. Yes, that's what I'm saying. IR. Yep. Then we get another 70 to 80 million to spend. If we make sales, then we have another more money to spend if we make additional sales. So it would make life a lot easier if Delap and Cunha get done, because then the sales we make will give us, we'll know we can spend those on other positions. And the next position seemingly is another attacker, a midfielder perhaps. The other thing he mentioned is on goalkeeper. And it's kind of repeated a little bit of what we know, the way that they've said it, which is that it wasn't something they want to spend on, but the implication was that obviously we need Onana to kind of turn it around, because they did not want to replace Onana this year. And that is absolutely the case. As I've said many times, the initial look was to replace Bayindir at the start of the season, that he would likely want to leave, that we want some competition. They would still not want to spend any of the budget at goalkeeper if they can avoid it. But they are looking at them. But they very much don't want to spend the budget on goalkeeper. So hopefully Onana turns it around, but at the same time, I think it's definitely on the cards that we could end up moving on Bayindir and buying another goalkeeper. And then in addition to that, if a big offer came in for Onana, who knows? You know what I mean? Yeah, but I really think it's gonna be a mistake if we don't get any goalkeeper in. And obviously the confidence there is not high based on how everything has been said. So we'll see. Let's see. Other 10 would be a winger type. Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I mean, Dibbling, Mastantuono, and the interesting link to McAtee all kind of make a lot of sense. You know what I mean? As potential players. So I know the price tag of Adam Wharton is going to be like 80 to 90 million, man. That's the crazy part. I just think that's why it's going to be really hard to get a deal for Adam Wharton done right now. Semenyo is an alternative to Cunha. I don't think it would be an addition. But maybe. Cunha and Delap means we're not prioritizing a right 10, maybe Ahmad. Well, that's correct, Baki. I would tend to agree with that. We want 2 goal scorers, Cunha, a number 9, in Delap, and then at the 10, but it may not necessarily be Ahmad. It could be Bruno, it could be Ahmad, it could be lots of things. If Mantato does get up to the first team, it'll probably be Ahmad regularly, but there's a lot of flexibility in that case. Yeah, so I think what we've learned today is that Osimhen is dead and gone. We can finally fully bury the Osimhen hope that we had. The small bit of hope that we had, because There's no compromise to be found there. And we're going for Delap for sure, which we did know that already. But we can kind of bury that. My biggest concern, and we know we have the money, 80 to 100 million. And we know there's concerns with goalkeeper, but they don't want to spend the budget there. We know all of that stuff. The big concern is what happens after Delap. But the other positive is if we make additional sales, we know that it's not funding Delap and Cunha. We know it's not funding Delap and Cunha. We know that it's funding additional potential signings, and that is really important. That is really important, that we know it's not that we don't need to get more money in. Yeah, we don't need to get more money in to sign our signing. So if we do get more money in, we can make more signings. And that is actually a real positive. If we get Champions League and we get Delap and Cunha, we could spend a buttload of money. No, the budget isn't as bad as we thought. That was kind of the point I'm making on the cuts. And I spoke about that on this morning's video. Because I said this, we have the money for these deals. We have the money for these deals because of all the cuts we've made. So, unfortunately, that's that. So we could spend money elsewhere. The next priority, I believe, is another forward and a midfielder. And then maybe a center back. Maybe a center back. Thoughts on the Franco Mastantuono rumor yesterday? I think it's an interesting one to keep an eye on because we do want more players in the forwards, and we have been watching them for a long time. But hey, let's see. Ollie Watkins. Yeah, if we cannot get Delap, I would take Ollie Watkins for a couple years. I really would. Yeah. Yeah, well, he said we don't want to buy a new goalkeeper, correct? And I've shared that many times. They did not want to spend the money on a new goalkeeper. They don't want to. But like he said, the way, and in the way that he was saying it, obviously our confidence in Onana is fairly low. So it is what it is. How about that fella starts ahead of Watkins for Villa? I don't know, man. Kim and Jay, I really hope we do not sign. I think he's a bum, unfortunately. Massive number of mistakes in him for center back. We already got Delict. I don't think he's any better. I don't know whether a keeper is likely. I don't know that a keeper is likely at all because it's going to depend on selling Onana or, selling Onana or by India. Don't you think the club would have options in case we do not get Delap? They do, but you have to bear in mind something. We have the money for Delap. What if we miss out on Champions League? Who else can we get for 30 million? Because Cunha is being prioritized there. Who else can we get for 30 million? It gets much more complicated after that, right? I don't know who else we could get for 30 million, unfortunately. I wish we had a sure enough other option. But yeah. Unfortunately. Jonathan David on the free doesn't make it much sense to me because it's going to be a 5-year deal. He's obviously not what we want. Game's gone. A relegation striker wants European football. Do you think that Delap is dependent on Champions League? I don't know. Would Delap be in front of Jackson in your opinion? It's a good question for me. I mean, I'm never can make sense of Chelsea's moves, to be quite honest, but perhaps they do rate him higher. I don't see what everyone else does with Delap. I've got my own concerns on that. There's no doubt about it. I've got my own concerns. Watkins disappointed, and I would take him. I mean, I would take him. I would, as a stopgap. Like, what if we could get Watkins for, I don't know, when's his contract up? He's 29. When is his contract up? Does anybody know? I can look it up here. Expires in 2028. I mean, but he's unhappy, so there's that. He's got 15 goals this season. Are you kidding me? He's got 22 goal con. This guy's goal record is nuts, you know. They also need to sell, don't they? Didn't they turn down 60 million from Arsenal in January? Sure, but perhaps he's be more available on a cut price deal. I would take him if we could get him for 30 million. I would take Watkins in a heartbeat. Then let the young guys develop, give him a few years, and then see what we need to do after that and fix the rest of the team. I'd definitely be okay with that. Everybody gets goals apart from Hojlund. Man, it's crazy, isn't it? It is crazy. I don't think Tony is an option. Chris Wood is a backup. I don't think Forest are going to sell Chris Wood for cheap, are they? But if he's not happy at Villa and they need to make a sale to kind of cash in a little bit, then getting him for 30, 40 million would be, to me, a great move if we don't get Delap. You know, he's a good player. Would give us a solution in the short term. And that means then any other money we have could fix everything else. Yeah, Chris Wood is like, yeah, we can't get Chris Wood. I would probably take Vardy splash. I'm not gonna. I would take anybody over Hojlund at this point. Villa need 40 million before June 30th for PSR, and they want Rashford. I would definitely take it. I gotta say that I would 100% take Ollie Watkins. I called the Rashford to Villa thing early. Yeah. I would definitely take Ollie Watkins. No, Villa want Rashford. They do. They want to keep him. I don't think he necessarily wants to stay, but they want to keep him. Gonzalo Ramos from PSG on the cheap. I think that's a big risk, unfortunately, as well. Just we're trying to get Delap. Look, the reality today is this: we're probably going to get Cunha. We basically everything's on the table for Delap. We're just waiting for his decision on where to go. If we don't get him, we have 30 million to spend. If we get Champions League, we have additional money to spend. If we make another sale, we have additional money to spend. So the question is, if we do not get Delap, what do we do? Mateta, we really do like too, for what it's worth. But if Palace are going to ask for 50, 60 million, we're not going to pay that either. So we'd have to get him in the 30, 40 range. And we would take him at 30, 40 for what it's worth. Because we do like Mateta. So I guess we just have to wait. Will Delap make a decision only? I think Delap's supposed to make his decision around the end of the season. So, yeah. Unfortunately. Higalo retired. Watkins can score with his head. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really change much at the moment. It doesn't really change much at the moment. Cunha, Watkins, and Dibbling would be amazing. Yeah, I would agree with that. Wissa, yeah, but I don't think he'll go for any fair price at all. Tell, I don't think that's under consideration anymore at all. You're gonna make Flex very happy with the Mbumo talk. How come Chelsea are fit to spend all this money? They constantly sell a lot of their young players. They sell a lot of young players for profit. Yeah, I mean, look, we're kind of in a holding pattern until we find out what happens with what Delap's call is. You know, we really don't know what comes after that from the striker front. What we do know is that there's potential for other signings, and that's what the really good part of the scenario is that if we do get Delap, then if we get Champions League or we make sales, we can buy other players with that money. So that's good shit. That's really good shit, actually. And I think that's why there's been more talk about potentially moving Garnacho on, because it'll free up the finances. Could Cunha be the striker signing? Is he more at 10? He's definitely the number 10. But I do wonder, if we don't get Delap, will we buy another number 10 and just run out, a Xerxes, thoughts on Orny saying Delap and Cunha without European sales? Well, yes, we know. We've been discussing that, but we do know that. That is what I said this morning in my video, which is that with all the cuts, that's why we did that, so that we can make sales in the worst, or make these purchases in the worst possible scenario. That's why the cuts. I've been saying that since January. That is why we made these cuts. That's why we've let go of staff. That's why they did all of these things, because we needed to be able to spend in the worst case scenario, bar relegation, that we had the money to spend. And now we do. We'll spend 90 to 100 million regardless. And we can do it. And so that is good news. We only go for Ederson if Casemiro leaves. Yeah, I think that's the case as well. I don't think we can do a midfielder like that. If we get Champions League, would we target a third attacker or move elsewhere? Good question. I think that, like, you mean if we were to get Cunha and Delap, and then we got Champions League, would we target a third attacker? I'm not sure about that. I think so. I think we would target a third attacker and a midfielder. 1 second. All right. Yeah. Yeah. It's not enough. We need more than 2 players. Of course we need more than 2 players. We're not planning to just buy 2 players. The point is the money is there to buy 2 players regardless. The money is there to buy 2 players regardless. And that was the idea. So to be clear, we have a transfer budget of 80 to 100 million already. Yeah. Yep. I think we'll get another forward, and I think a midfielder I think the next money will go to a forward and a midfielder in addition to that. Are the rumors re a certain young striker from France, the one you referenced a few weeks ago? One of them. There's other ones that we're still looking at too, but that one is definitely happening as well. Don't we need a DM really? And I would keep an eye on Anton Stack. If Casemiro goes as well, I would definitely keep an eye on him. Yeah, the one mentioned by Christopher Michel as well. Definitely, I would keep an eye on him as an affordable potential deal. I mean, maybe we could even get him even if Casemiro doesn't go, as another player we could bring in if there's other sales or if we get Champions League and we have more budget. The biggest question that I have is still the only thing we really don't know is if we didn't get Delap. Caught offside page says that Chelsea has paid for Sancho. No, I think it's just that it's been confirmed they're finishing above it, so they made an assumption that the obligation will be triggered. That being said, they are due to trigger the obligation now, so they have to decide very soon now to trigger it or pay a penalty. We don't know how long that is, but they have to decide very soon on that. What's the worst case scenario in regards to sales on the whole summer? The worst case is Cunha and Delap financially. We missed Europa, all of that. That's like the worst case scenario, right? I mean, from a budgetary standpoint. I mean, what do you guys think about this team? Hang on, I'll put it together here. And I'm gonna have people debate me to no end about who's starting in what position, and that's okay. I don't really care. I'm just trying to put our best players on the pitch. Obviously, there's alternatives in all these positions, but give me a second. We'll pull it up. I think this is like about our worst case scenario for like a starting lineup next year. You're not convinced with Wilcox we're supposed to sell well and buy well? None of that's happening. You don't think this is buying well? I think that even with the doubts I have on Delap, it's obviously a good signing from a cost perspective. What's Maguire doing there? He's our best center back. That's what he's doing there. What do you mean? That's not good enough. Not good enough for what? What's the context? Because it solves our biggest problem, which is we can't score goals, by adding, well, it adds 10 and it adds, I don't know what, 15 goals there. That's 25 more goals. It's probably putting us into the top 8. Yeah, it probably would be like that, you know, for what it's worth. But it might be Menu, you know, like there's alternatives to this. Obviously, you could shift it around. You could shift it around. Yeah, that's like the worst case scenario. Solve the attack, you know. But how many points do you think Cunha and Delap give us over Hojlund and Garnacho? Yeah, that proposed lineup did bother people, didn't it? Jeez. I always have a feeling as people get so agitated about it. How many more? I'm going to poll you guys. Just from Cunha and Delap. How many more points does that give us? Honestly. I mean, think about it seriously. How many more does it give us? $10 to 15. I think you guys are underestimating the amount of points. I mean, I think you're underestimating it, to be fair, but hold on. I want to look at something. Look at this for a second. Yeah, all the 0-0s, the 1-0s, the 2-1s. I just want to make this point. We've scored 38 goals, excuse me. If we got 15 more goals, it puts us here. All right. Now, I think that you're getting 20 more goals. How many more goals do you think we get out of this? How many more goals do you think we get from those two players? Right? Because I think Delap gives us 10 goals more. I think that Cunha gives us 10 more goals. I think we get at least 20 more goals out of it. That would put us in the running for the top 6 to top 8. 0 with Delap compared to Hojlund. I don't know how you can say that when Delap has 10 more goals than Hojlund in the same league. You know? Like, he has 10 more goals than Hojlund in the same league. Cunha has 10 more goals than Garnacho in the same league. It's less wasted attacks, not just goals. Exactly. Like, at minimum, you're talking about 20 more goals in this team, in my opinion. At minimum, you're talking about 20 more goals. I mean, look at this, right? Like, we're finishing 10 below our XG. You added 20 more, I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying it's enough. No, I'm talking about additional goals. You're not getting just 20 from Cunha and Delap. You're getting arguably 30 from them. So I think you're getting 20 more than that. Of course it's hypothetical. Of course it's hypothetical. But I think it's even more effect than people are thinking. So I would assume it puts us in this range. So I think we'd be in the competition. I think we'd be in the top 8, top 6 competition. I think so. I think 10 to 15 points is definitely, which is what you guys voted. I think that's understated. But I guess that would put us where, huh? It would still put us in the top 8. So I guess that's fair. If you think that. The biggest answers were 15 and 10 to 15. Do any of us want to win because they look like we'd be happy to finish in top 4? Well, we can't do everything we need to win the league in one summer, man. Yeah, they're playing for Ipswich and Wolves. I know. Look, I made this point the other day. I'm going to show it again. Because people saying, well, service and yada yada, we don't get enough service and blah blah blah. All that kind of nonsense, all right? And I'm going to dispel with the nonsense for a moment here, okay? I want to show you something. Here's Garnacho. Look at how many passes he receives and how many touches he gets in the attacking area, okay? He's in the 92nd and 95th percentile. For the love of God, please, stop saying we don't create chances. Garnacho has the 84th percentile for non-penalty expected goals. We get plenty of chances. Here's Cunha. He's in the 22nd percentile for passes received. He receives the ball half as much as Garnacho and scores a lot more goals. We'll get the chances. They will get the chances. They will score more goals, arguably, not fewer. More. These are just wasted opportunities for the most part. Look at this. The gap here. Cunha will score a lot more goals. If Garnacho can get this many chances per game, then Garnacho will score. Then Cunha will score even more than he's getting now. Like, you do realize that. Like, let's look at something for a second. 7.87 touches. All right. And he has 5 goals. All right. So look at that for just a moment. If you want to look at it from a stats perspective, that means 1.57. No, I'm sorry. 7.87 times how many games have we played? 33. Let's look at the numbers on that. Touches in the attacking area over 32 games over how many minutes? Over 1996 times. Oh, what am I saying? I'm just doing some NA math here. Our schools are terrible. It's not my fault. So 173 touches in the box from Garnacho. 5 goals, all right? Okay. 173 touches in the box, 5 goals, okay? Cunha has, let's see, 2253 90 times All right. Has 108 touches. And has 14 goals. All right. So with the same number of chances as touches as Garnacho, Cunha would be expected to score 23 goals. All right. So you have to just realize this is not a problem of service. This is not a problem of touches. This is not a problem of not getting the ball. It's purely an efficiency and finishing problem. So yeah, Cunha this in a similar amount of touches, it would be expected to reach 22 goals. That's 17 more goals from him alone. Now, do I think it works that 1-to-1? No, but I don't think it works that differently. It's not like we don't get the ball to our forwards. It's like this nonsense that it's this nonsensical thing. Now let's look at Delap. Okay, now Delap you look at and say, holy shit, that's low. 3.25 touches, 3.86. But he scores 12 goals. If we look at Hojlund, who does not get a ton of touches, he still gets more touches than Liam Delap. 3.72 and 4.34 compared to 3.25 and 3.86. So he still gets more than Liam Delap, right? So this is my point. Yes, Hojlund doesn't touch the ball that much. But even with fewer touches, Delap is scoring way more goals than him. Yes, Garnacho touches the ball an enormous amount. And if Cunha was getting those touches, we'd score a lot more goals. So it's like, it is what it is in that respect. They will score substantially more goals. It's not like we're not getting chances and we're not getting touches. And Hojlund doesn't involve himself in the game, which certainly is a factor in that. But it's like Delap is one of the things I do benefit him for is that he's working off of real scraps. Hojlund has somewhat of scraps, but can't do anything with them anyways. Noted Garnacho touches ball. So anyway, I think it's even though I think it's still a potential mistake to miss out on Osimhen and a big striker there, I still think this is a gigantic, monumental level of improvement to the team. I think it's literally 30 more goals. I genuinely think that it's probably worth 20 to 30 more goals. I still think that Delap could not. I think there's a chance Delap doesn't kick on. I think there's a chance he remains about where he is now, 10 to 15 goals. But I think Cunha is a much better signing. That's my big take on this. And I've had my concerns over Cunha's like on a personality basis, but when I look at him, personality, by that I mean discipline, not personality, because the more I've watched him and the more I've looked at it and the more I think about it, Cunha to me really, really reminds me of Bruno when we signed him, in just the way he wants to shoulder the weight, the responsibility, and I think he's the guy who will make things happen, but is good at them, is good at making things happen. I think Cunha will be a much better signing than Delap. I think Cunha is much more likely to be a player who kicks on big at a club like United because the shirt won't weigh heavy on him. The pressure won't get to him. That, I think, is one of the biggest things I could say. And that's my concern with Delap as a young forward. Cunha is a little bit older, about the age that Bruno was when we signed him. He's been through it. He's come from Atletico. I really think Cunha has the potential to kick on in a massive way and change the game for us. I think he could be a 20-plus goal scorer for us, and we need that from one of them, So if we take this as the worst-case scenario, should Delap choose us, I think it puts us in the top 8, which is not good enough, mind you, but I think it does put us there. If you were to then say, hey, well, what if we can get another forward in? Who do you get? I don't know. I don't know that there's much of an impactful forward in there. But, in the midfield, if you were to get, I don't even know. I mean, like, if you could somehow swing an Ederson, and then you get, you get Anton Stack as an option here because you're making more sales, then that would be even better to give us more in the team, because I do worry about the midfield. When I look at the team as it was, I do worry about the midfield. I like Ugarte, but I think that one, we don't have complementary partnerships as much as I would like us to. And two, I think that we don't really have a proper rotation or depth for Ugarte. Casemiro doesn't have the legs to do what Ugarte does. So we end up changing the game entirely based on whether Ugarte is playing in terms of the press, and things like that. If Ugarte is a squad player in the future, I think he will be too. But once you fix the other areas, then it starts to come up the list. That's always been my point. The attack is so bad, it's not even worth mentioning. But what we do need is another player to back up the press. Because what Ugarte does do very well, he does do this extremely well, is back up the press. He presses really well. So we need a partner who can also back up the press, but we also need somebody else who can play in the 6 who can back up the press. Because it's not Casemiro. I'm sorry, but it isn't. That would be a concern. So I want somebody else to come in here who can, whether they start over Ugarte or rotate with him or come on as a sub, that can back up the press and keep us in the attack. That I want somebody in here who can help progress the ball, who's really good on it, like Hayden Hackney or something like that. I want that too. So I think this is the worst case scenario. I think the next possibility is that we can get more forwards in, which would be nice. If we could get like a Mastan Tuono in, that would be really nice as a rotation attack. That way you can do like a Xerxes and something like this. And if you still have Garnacho or you have Menu or something like that in here. Cunha would be the Garnacho upgrade. Yeah, totally. And then if you had like, I don't know, like Hackney as an option here, and you have like Stack as an option or rotation here, then I think you start to get a lot of options, and you still have Mount and stuff. Yeah, like maybe you have to sell one of these players. I don't know. And you have Cheeto, and where's Hojlund fit into this? I don't know. But I look at that, would make me feel more comfortable that we have other options in there. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see now. But I'm okay with it. I'm really okay with it. The more I've thought about Cunha, the more I've looked into it, I think it could be unbelievable. I really do. I think it could be unbelievable in that respect. Who's the most likely third attacking signing if we get CL then? Dibbling. It's going to be a right-sider with a left foot. So Dibbling or Mastan Tuono, I would say, based on just what's out there and all that. Dibbling or Mastan Tuono. And then I think you look to the midfield after that. And I don't fucking know in the midfield, but I think Stack is a possibility, for sure. The other thing with Stack, I will say this, is just in terms of his profile, you could play this, where he's like the sitter and Ugarte is free, pressing, doing the things he does really well, and getting involved to help push the press up. Now, this would be a very, very hard midfield to play against, and people are going to look at that and be very annoyed in here, I'm sure. But it would actually be really nice for Ruben Amorim for what he'd want to. Yeah, for what he'd want to do, it would actually be really nice. It would be really strong defensively. It would people are gonna not like it at all. Mateta's chipped Raya to equalize. I gotta go check that goal out. I would really take Mateta. I would say that. I would absolutely take Mateta. If we could not get, Delap, I would take him. I really would. If Arsenal draw, is it over? Did Liverpool win the league, or does it have to be a loss? You leech it back for progression. Depends on how Heaven gets on. Depends on how Aiden Heaven gets on. Loss? Okay. Yeah, my biggest concern here is there's not guys who can score with your head, but you have a 6'4" player here, you have a big player here, you have a big player here who can all score with their head, so that would help a little bit. If we get Champions League, there's no reason to not go all in on an elite striker. Well, I would agree, but if it's not Osimhen, who is it? Who's the elite striker? Heaven's back out of his boot, so hopefully he'll be back before the end of the season. We are interested in Osimhen, but we're not going to go for him because the financials of the deal just don't make sense to us. Really, that's always been the concern. Now, that's not what Ornstein said. He didn't say it was because of the financials. He didn't give a reason, but I'm quite confident that if we're not going for him, that's why. That's the answer. For obvious reasons. Retegi. We have not heard any links to him. Samu, I would take Aghawa in an instant, but he is also young. He's a better player, I think, but he is young. He's quite young. Can we offload Mountain Shot? No, I don't think so. A pivot for Ekatike, and that's a possibility, but I think that's all, again, a huge risk. You're talking about a player whose fee is going to be more than Osimhen's and is much less proven. That's risky to me, so yeah. All right, well, we've kind of discussed this ad nauseum at this point in time, but at least we know where we're going from here. Bruno will stay. Bruno's fine. He's going to be part of the full rebuild here. We kind of know where we stand now. I think for the most part, we have to wait to hear more on Delap. Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to end it there. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for hanging out this afternoon. I will see you all later. Thank you for spending that time today. All right. See you later, guys. Have a good one. Goodbye, everybody.